أعلن عن افتتاح
The 41st plenary meeting of the General Assembly is called to order. The General Assembly will consider Agenda Item 11, entitled Sport for Development and Peace, Building a Peaceful and Better World through Sport and the Olympic Ideal. In connection with this item, the Assembly has before it a draft resolution issued as document A/74/L18. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Japan, His Excellency Mr. Mori Yoshiro, President of the Tokyo Organizing Committee of the Olympic and Paralympic Games, to introduce draft resolution A/74/L18.
معالي السيد موري يوشيرو.
Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Honorable Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce the draft resolution A-74-L18 entitled Building a Peaceful and Better World Through Sport and the Olympic Ideal, which the government of Japan submitted. Let me start by expressing my sincere gratitude to the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Guterres, and the United Nations members for giving us this opportunity. His Holiness Pope Francis visited Hiroshima and Nagasaki in my country just 2 weeks ago and delivered a clear message: a world without nuclear weapon is possible and necessary, which truly resonated with many people in Japan. The atomic bomb was dropped and exploded over Nagasaki, where people had kept the Christian faith for 250 years during the Edo period, although it was prohibited. That history has led some Japanese people to feel that their prayers for peace may go unanswered. However, the Pope's message has lit our future with hope. We have seen multiple threats to peace, including wars in the world. The impassioned speech on global warming by Ms. Greta Thunberg rocked and impressed people around the world, including me. My first speech at the UN General Assembly was presented at the Millennium Summit held in 2000. Meanwhile, as the then Prime Minister of Japan, I established human security as one of the pillars of Japanese diplomacy, calling for enforcement of the UN functions. Japan established an International Committee on Human Security, which was delegated by the then Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Kofi Annan, and advocated the concept of a human-centered approach to the world. At the UN high-level event on climate change in 2007, I stated that climate change is a challenge deeply related to the goal of achieving human security for all, especially the poor and the vulnerable, while highlighting the importance of providing assistance to developing countries. The issue of infectious diseases was raised for the first time as one of the main topics on the agenda for the Kyushu Okinawa G8 summit held in July 2000, where I led the debate as a chairperson of the summit. In 2001, I attended the high-level review at the UN General Assembly special session on AIDS and had candid dialogues with the current UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, who has been playing an outstanding role in the United Nations. Consequently, support was gained for the establishment of the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. Despite years of my effort to contribute to world peace and prosperity, I have still faced a harsh reality that always made me accept my inadequacy. However, I shall never give up on a world of peace and prosperity, though I know how difficult it is to realize them. The Olympic Truce resolution makes me aware that I'm not the only one. It is the embodiment of the shared hope of people across the world that we can realize a world with no conflicts, at least during the Olympic and Paralympic Games, and that we can live together by fostering mutual understanding and respect with unity in diversity. I am truly humbled to have the fifth opportunity to give a speech at the United Nations today. I have always kept human security and my prayers for world peace and prosperity in mind while on this stage. Especially today, I feel that the former UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Ms. Sadako Ogata, who regretfully passed away in October, is strongly backing me. Ms. Ogata was the special advisor of the organizing committee for the Tokyo 2020 Games. She was also my true friend who accompanied me when I visited the African continent in 2001 for the first time as the Prime Minister of Japan, and she led me and my party inside the Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who was then Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary, also joined me for the entire trip. Prime Minister Abe and I have committed ourselves to continue to work for world peace and prosperity, carrying on the cherished aspiration of the late Sadako Ogata. I was extremely impressed by IOC President Dr. Bach's compelling thoughts for world peace while we discussed the Tokyo 2020 Games many times over. Dr. Bach has repeatedly told Prime Minister Abe and me that he thinks the initiative for a global Olympic truce is so precious. We share the same wish. Today, I hope to convey it to the entire world as a bigger circle. He also expressed and explained his thought to the leaders on the occasion of G20 summit at Osaka. We share the same wish. Today, I hope to convey it to the entire world as a bigger circle through the members of this United Nations General Assembly. Peace is the original concept of Olympism. The ancient Greeks competed in the Olympics 2,800 years ago as a replacement for conflicts, and that idea is now the heart of the Olympic truce. I believe that it is our mission to promote and to pass on Olympism to future generations. I experienced the Tokyo 1964 Games when I was 27 years old. Looking back, I remember that I deeply felt and appreciated the peace that allowed athletes of different countries to gather together to celebrate the Games. The Tokyo 1964 Olympic and Paralympic Games was one of the symbols of recovery from the World War II for the Japanese people, and it showcased to the world how Japan recovered from a burnt-down land in just 19 years after the war. It also gave positive energy to the Japanese people and led to dramatic economic growth. I am delighted that the second Olympic and Paralympic Games in the same city of Tokyo in 2020 will showcase Japan's peaceful and fully matured cities to the world, as well as our recovery efforts in the disaster-affected Tohoku area. At the same time, I would like to express my sincere appreciation for the help and support that we have received from all over the world after the 2011 Great East Japan earthquake. We hope that our recovery efforts can give courage to those in Japan and throughout the world who have suffered the severe consequences of natural disaster. Giving courage to one another will strengthen us all to stand up together. Having realized the preciousness of peace through the Olympic and Paralympic Games, Japan wishes to let everybody in the world appreciate peace through sports. To that end, we have implemented an international contribution program called Sport for Tomorrow to provide opportunities for interacting with people from different countries. We are enhancing the development of human resources through sports by setting a target of over 10 million people to be involved in more than 100 countries towards 2020. We have just reached the goal of 10 million people. Many Japanese youths are also involved in the program. Since peace is built on trust and mutual understanding among people, the Tokyo 2020 Games will provide an opportunity for heartwarming grassroots communication between participating athletes and residents of local communities in Japan. This project is called the Host Town Project. Through the Host Town Project, a brand new initiative in the world, the Tokyo 2020 Games will be heartwarming as residents of the local communities cheer for athletes that they host. The main theme of our games is unity in diversity. World peace could be realized by all the people around the world living together. The Tokyo 2020 Organizing Committee practiced unity in diversity by becoming the first organizing committee in history to operate the Olympic and Paralympic Games through one organization, thereby demonstrating the remarkable benefits of unity in diversity. Furthermore, Tokyo will be the first city to host the Summer Paralympic Games 2 times. From the viewpoint of unity in diversity and how to live together on our precious Earth, the Tokyo Games is also committed to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, SDGs. Aiming to contribute to the SDGs set by the United Nations, we have made the gold, silver, and bronze medals for the Tokyo 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games with recycled metals extracted from small electronic devices that are no longer in use, such as old mobile phones. The Olympic torch relay will start on March the 26th next year. Part of the materials used in the Olympic and Paralympic torches is from recycled aluminum, originally used in the construction of prefabricated housing units following the 2011 disaster. The victory ceremony podiums will be made with recycled plastic, including marine plastic waste. Through such pioneering efforts, we hope that the Tokyo 2020 Games will be the beacon of light that will illuminate the way to building a sustainable world, including SDGs. The Rugby World Cup 2019, hosted by Japan this fall, in the month of November, was the first World Cup to be held in Asia outside the rugby-developed countries. World Rugby Chairman Sir Bill Beaumont appreciated the remarkable success of the Games as saying the greatest Rugby World Cup. TV viewership peaked at 53.7% of the Japanese population. The number of visitors to the 16 fan zones across Japan reached a new record, approximately 1.13 million people. Close communication at 55 team camps in 61 municipalities have the great fortune to further world peace as well as to further the cause of the Tokyo 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games next year. We will make the most of the successful experience of the Rugby World Cup for the Tokyo 2020 Games. Everywhere you went, the places were packed. And people didn't realize that so many rugby fans existed in Japan to begin with, as I said earlier on. It was so because of the close communication between the athletes and the local municipalities. That brought about the great success. This successful experience of the Rugby World Cup will be fully capitalized for our upcoming games in 2020. What is marvelous about sport is, I think, the delight in achieving the unachievable and overcoming challenging difficulties. This year, I will be 82 years old. This could be my last opportunity to stand before the United Nations General Assembly. What I have learned through sport has been sustaining my political career and life all along. By making the impossible possible in sport, our hope is that wars will disappear from the globe, not only during the Olympic Games, but forever. If leaders are courageous enough to openly share their opinions, no matter how difficult it may be, agreements could replace fighting. Now, tension is rising in international situation. Small countries always suffer from confrontation between large countries. I cannot ignore the suffering of the vulnerable. Therefore, I now want to repeat the prayer for peace and prosperity in the world, believing that sport has the power to change the world and our future, as the Tokyo 2020 Games vision says. I'm delighted to inform you that today more than 180 member states support the draft Olympic Truce resolution that Japan submitted. I would like to express my gratitude to the UN General Assembly for this opportunity and ask all the members for their support in passing the draft resolution today. Thank you very much.
يسعدني باسمكم جميعا.
On behalf of all of you, I would like to thank His Excellency Mr. Mori Yoshiro, President of the Tokyo Organizing Committee of the Olympic and Paralympic Games, and the ex-premier of Japan, and I would like to express our deep gratitude for the depth in his statement, especially regarding the role of multilateralism and sports and Olympic and Paralympic Games towards consolidating relations between the member states. Thank you very much, Mr. Premier. And now I give the floor to the representative of the UAE, Ms. Maha Harkous. Madam, you have the floor.
شكرا سيدي الرئيس.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, I would like to express my joy at taking part in this important discussion on sport for peace and development. And I would like to briefly outline the priorities of the UAE, which recognizes the important role of sport in achieving the SDGs and utilizing them in service of humanity and peace. We would like to join more than 170 co-sponsors for this resolution. Mr. President, the United Arab Emirates believes in the importance of harnessing and enhancing sports capabilities, especially persons with disabilities, or whom we name in our country as people of determination. And this is done within the framework of the UAE's commitment to the implementation of the Agreement on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and our full realization of the importance of integrating them in society. The UAE has hosted the Special Olympics World Games in Abu Dhabi, where over 7,500 athletes from 190 states took part. This is the first Special Olympics tournament to be held in the Middle East since Special Olympics were founded 50 years ago. Moreover, the UAE last month hosted the World Para-Athletics Championship in Dubai, where over 1,400 athletes from 122 states came to the country in order to compete in track and field competitions. And this championship is the last qualifier for the 2020 Tokyo Paralympics. Mr. President, my country accords special importance to building a society that enjoys a high degree of knowledge and a strong cultural awareness of jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu is an inspiring sport that enhances discipline and the respect for the competition, as well as perseverance and patience and self-confidence. Here, the UAE hosted the World Jiu-Jitsu Championship last month, which witnessed 1,500 athletes, male and female, from 65 states throughout the world who came to participate under one umbrella. And here a UAE women's team participated in the championship. This tournament, and for the first time, was conducted collectively, which covered all the different categories. And this is the first time this happens in the history of the jiu-jitsu sport where one tournament is done in one place and at the same time. The UAE seeks to nurture young sports talent through holding discussion roundtables and exchanging ideas with decision makers. Youth in my country recently conducted a youth discussion circle under the title Youth Sports Leaders, and discussions focused on the main three pivots pertaining to challenges that young athletes in the UAE managed to overcome. They also discussed academic fields pertaining to athletic topics, as well as means to reach sports positions in the different fields. And as the Tokyo Olympics draw near, the UAE held an international sports creativity conference under the slogan of tolerance and peace in sports. And in it, a group of young champions who have won medals in the Rio de Janeiro Olympics of 2016, as well as the Youth Olympics of 2018 in Argentina. And we also urge to support and bolster the capabilities of young Arab athletes in order to achieve more Olympic titles and medals, especially in the Tokyo Olympics. In closing, my country's hosting of these international tournaments and our welcoming of elite athletes from throughout the world are not only in line with the United Nations plan to use sports for peace and development, but it also embodies the slogan of tolerance that was adopted by the UAE as its symbol in 2019. And as the 75th anniversary of the United Nations draws near, we believe that this is an important opportunity to recall the importance overall in achieving the goals of development and peace and in sowing the seeds of noble values among the people of the world. Thank you. I thank the distinguished representative of the United Arab Emirates for her statement, and I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Maldives. Madam Layla Sharaf, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Maldives is pleased to join and co-sponsor today's resolution titled Building a Peaceful and Better World Through Sport and Olympic Ideal. Under this agenda item, the Maldives thanks Japan for its successful efforts in coordinating the resolution. Let me also take this opportunity to extend my delegation's felicitations and best wishes to Japan on the upcoming Tokyo 2020 Olympics. We are confident that it will be an important opportunity to bring people together and harness the power of sports in promoting peace, tolerance, and solidarity. Sports can heal wounds, mend fences, and rise above differences. Sports has the power to change the world and transform humankind. Sports, especially the Olympic ideal, has helped to bring together people of different cultures and nationalities. They continue to enhance mutual understanding through a spirit of friendship and fair play. To this day, the flame of the Olympic movement symbolizes not only the achievements in sports, but a bridge that joins communities, promotes tolerance and social inclusion. This is the spirit of the Olympic Games. The Maldives is proud to be an active participant in the Olympic movement since 1988. President Ibrahim Mohamed Solih, since assuming office in 2018, gives high priority to promote education, inclusivity, and better health through sports, which fosters tolerance, understanding, and cooperation within society. the Maldives continues to make significant investments in sports infrastructure and promotes opportunities for all. The Maldives has made it a policy to designate a sports counselor in all islands. This will allow the establishment of equal pay between men and women in national sports teams and boost female participation in sports, which will also encourage elimination of traditional gender stereotypes. Investments in sports will encourage greater participation of youth in various athletic fields and help them to develop leadership skills to become positive role models in their communities and promote economic and social progress. Sports programs implemented at national and local levels are important in facilitating sustainable development and peaceful coexistence. Our commitment to invest in sports is rooted in our conviction that sports can promote peace and development as reflected in all 17 agenda items in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Mr. President, the Maldives is proud of the fact that it will be hosting the 11th edition of the Indian Ocean Island Games in 2023. This is the first time that the Maldives is going to host the Games, which have been held among the Indian Ocean Island nations for 43 years. The Maldives believes that this will help us not only promote sports at home, but also help bring together future generations in cooperation and harmony. The Maldives believes that the Indian Ocean Island Games will foster friendship and mutual understanding and create a spirit of solidarity among all participating states through regional cooperation. The government accords high priority to raise a new generation of health-conscious and active Maldivians. We recently launched the campaign Mission Fit Maldives to underline the national importance of achieving the collective goal for a healthier and a fitter nation. In order to promote sports as a vehicle for peace and development, it is important that sports policies be inclusive, leaving no one behind. The government intends to modify at least 80% of sports facilities by 2023 to provide access to people with disabilities, as well as to provide equal opportunities for women and girls to participate more fully in national sports programs. Mr. President, there is no social activity that brings people together in such great numbers with so much passion and enjoyment more than sports. Regardless of age or gender, sports is enjoyed by all. Sports inspires a nobler cause, the spirit of tolerance, togetherness, respect, and social inclusion. We must continue to truly recognize the power of sports to change the lives of individuals and rebuild communities that are peaceful, resilient, and prosperous. I thank you.
I would like to thank the representative of the Maldives, and now I would like to give the floor to the representative of Qatar, Mr. Ahmed bin Saif al-Kawari. Sir, you have the floor.
سيد الرئيس.
Mr. President, it gives us pleasure to take part in this important discussion and to join the co-sponsors of draft resolution bearing the title Sport for Development and Peace, Building a Peaceful and Better World Through Sport and the Olympic Ideal, which will be adopted at the GA today. We welcome its content, which highlights the valuable contribution of sport in promoting education, sustainable development, peace, cooperation, solidarity, fairness, social inclusion, and health, as well as combating terrorism and violent extremism that leads to terrorism. Mr. President, sports enjoys special importance in the state of Qatar out of its belief in the ability of sports to create positive social change that would enhance peace and development. And in achievement of Qatar's 2030 national vision, the state has greatly invested in building and developing sports facilities as well as developing the infrastructure related to it according to international standards. This has qualified Qatar to host major sports events very successfully, such as the Asian Olympics in 2006, as well as the World Championship on Athletics for persons with disabilities in 2015 and other international tournaments. The most recent of which was Doha's hosting of the World Athletics Championship that concluded in October and which witnessed the participation of 2,000 athletes, males and females from 209 states. Doha has recently hosted the 24th championship of the Arabian Gulf Football Cup, and moreover, the state of Qatar will be holding this week the World Championship of Clubs in 2019. Qatar looks forward to hosting the 2022 FIFA World Cup tournament, which is the first of its type in the Middle East and the Arab world, and it has offered all the necessary capabilities required to turn this championship into a historic opportunity and a legacy for Qatar and the region and the world, and will greatly contribute to enhancing the values of peace and tolerance between the different peoples of the world. The Qatari Higher Committee on Projects and Heritage is playing an important role in achieving these goals. Several programs and initiatives have been launched, including the following: Challenge 22, as well as the program on Generation Amazing, and the Jusur Institute, which means bridges. These initiatives aim to empower Arab youth and to guarantee their ability to participate in the preparations being made to host the FIFA Championship and to furnish them with the necessary capabilities to build a better future. I would like to note here the role of the Qatari Olympic Committee, which has made important accomplishments at the national and international level, and in supporting the Olympic movement according to the principles of the Olympic Charter, and with spreading an Olympic culture at the widest level possible. It works on encouraging the participation in sports amongst all factions of society, and in developing the abilities of athletes and trainers and equipping them with international standards, in addition to hosting local and regional and international sports events. And Qatar, as the next host of the FIFA World Cup in 2022, we seek for this championship to be eco-friendly and be the first tournament of its kind to be carbon neutral through using solar energy in the playing fields, as well as in the cooling technology and low energy lighting and the provision of water. The state of Qatar, through the Friends of Sport group, the Friends of Sports for Sustainable Development group, which it co-chairs with Monaco, seeks to enhance cooperation at the international level in order to highlight the important role that sports play in enhancing development, sustainable development and peace, especially through encouraging tolerance and respect and the empowerment of communities. Qatar allocates special importance to preventing terrorist attacks on unfortified locations such as sports installations, and it offers the different capabilities and expertise that it has gained in enhancing international cooperation and in building capacities in cooperation with the necessary international organizations. Moreover, it has signed an agreement has been signed between the Qatari-based International Center for Sport Security, which is a non-profit organization, and the UNODC in order to enhance and create a new form of cooperation in the prevention of attacks on sports events and in the prevention of violent extremism that leads for terrorism through sports. And we also realize the importance of sports in stopping violent extremism, and we have thus cooperated with the USA as well as the UNODC and the Football for Peace in organizing a special event on the margins of the GA high-level debate last September on enhancing sports capabilities to prevent violent extremism. Moreover, Qatar supports efforts being made to prevent crime and violence amongst youth by an international program to implement the Doha Declaration by the UNODC, which managed to reach 6,000 young men and women through offering life skills programs through sports under the slogan of Line Up and Live Up, and which aims to prevent drug use, violence, and crime. In closing, we would like to affirm the Qatari state's willingness to cooperate with the International Olympic Committee as well as the International Paralympic Committee in order to make sport a tool to enhance peace and dialogue and tolerance. Thank you, sir.
Le distingué délégué de Qatar.
I thank the distinguished delegate of Qatar, and I now give the floor to the permanent representative of the Principality of Monaco, Her Excellency, Madame Isabelle Picot. You have the floor, Madam.
Monsieur le Président,
President of the International Olympic Committee, Permanent Observer of the IOC, President of the Organizing Committee of the Olympic Games and Paralympic Games in Tokyo, colleagues. The UN member states are today renewing their trust in the power of sport by adopting the draft resolution on building a peaceful and better world thanks to sport and the Olympic ideal. In a few months' time, we will once again be watching the tests and performances of the Olympic and Paralympic athletes who inspire us so much, both by the records that they break and by their exemplary nature and what they embody. When the Olympic flame goes to Tokyo in July, Japan will have the honor of hosting the Olympic Games and Paralympic Games for the 4th time, just a few months after the success of the Rugby World Cup. I should like to congratulate the Japanese delegation for the resolution which we will adopt. Introducing new disciplines such as baseball, climbing, karate, skateboard and surfing show the ambition and trying to seek out new generations. The success of the Youth Olympic Games in Buenos Aires in 2018 merely strengthened the link between the Olympic movement and youth across the world, and we eagerly await the Games in Lausanne in a few weeks' time. Japan is hosting the 32nd Olympic and 16th Paralympic Games and understands how to involve young people and all of people in this planetary event. Through its Sport for Tomorrow and Host Town Initiative programs, the Tokyo Games will allow for new partnerships and relations between the people and the athletes of all countries. The guiding principle, doing better together for the planet and humanity, as set by the organizing committee of the Tokyo Games, is a strong signal of openness, meeting, exchange, and conviviality, which will go very much beyond the Olympic Village. In many ways, also, the legacy of the Games goes beyond a merely sporting context. We should remember the message of hope from the procession from the athletes of the Republic of Korea and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea under a single flag in Pyeongchang, and the message of unity from the team of refugees. We also welcome the strategic roadmap of Agenda 2020 of the International Olympic Committee, which guided such progress. The IOC has also taken measures to make the candidatures and the Games themselves more enduring, so that in the long term the host towns and cities benefit from the boost provided by the Games in terms of infrastructure for the future benefit of all inhabitants and users. We cannot but encourage the International Olympic Committee to continue its work to promote the role of sport and public policy. This is close to our own objectives as member states. And the IOC's action and the UN's actions are mutually reinforcing. Through its partnerships and long-term commitment to sport for development and peace, and in the area of gender equality and combating all forms of discrimination, the IOC is exemplary. Whilst the contribution of sport to a better world and to lasting and sustainable development has been welcomed and recognized since 1993 in the agenda of the United Nations, the alignment with Agenda 2030 could be further bolstered. The Kazan plan is particularly important to guide governments in this regard. Gender equality, integration, education, social inclusion, professional integration and promotion of healthy ways of living. All sectors can be affected by sport and where sport is of great interest. In the area of peace and security, sport is also relevant for reconciliation or for the prevention of violent extremism, because it can bring people together and promote respect, mutual understanding, and it prohibits all discrimination. Sport provides platforms for exchange between individuals and communities who would otherwise not meet at all. In addition, the security of global sporting events, and particularly the Olympic Games, is one of the main challenges which all organisers must take into account, and we thank them for that. Chair, the group of the Friends of Sport, which I am pleased to chair along with Ambassador Kazani of Qatar, continues with its role and has increasing numbers of representatives from our countries participating in it. There's also the participation of the Division of Social and Inclusive Development, which is the focal point within the Secretariat, and the Division of Awareness Raising amongst the public. The idea is to extend our hands outside and ensure that through sport, people in the world get to know what the United Nations is doing. Sport's contribution has therefore been highlighted throughout the year by my delegation, alongside ECOSOC meetings through the Social Development Commission and the Commission on the Status of Women, as well as other treaty bodies such as the Commission for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. As an example, the role that can be played by sporting entities which are known throughout the world has been shown through the example of football clubs which have foundations and strong identities, and they support programs for thousands of young people who thus acquire values which will mark them throughout their lives. Sport is also fosters awareness of the great challenges in our societies, such as the difficulties faced by women athletes, even at professional level, as well as differences in salaries and payment, which are still far too high in many disciplines and many competitions. These issues have been discussed with the women's football team in Bordeaux, the Girondines, and with their president, and they have shared their experiences. We are aware that sport and Olympism is a spirit and a philosophy of life. And this year we have therefore, under the leadership of Dr. Jordan Metzel, doctor in the Hospital for Special Surgery in New York, and also an author and triathlete, we have organised 2 Iron Strength events in the United Nations. This is a sporting and friendly event, allowing the people from New York and the member states to meet, and it allows the public at large to become more aware of the role that sport plays for Agenda 2030 and development and peace. In an effort to greater openness for young people in New York, we have organised 2 sporting events for many young people in New York to have unique opportunities to have access to the United Nations, to become aware of Agenda 2030, and to play basketball on the pitch built by the organisation. With the encouragement of His Serene Highness, the Sovereign Prince Albert II, who is a member of the International Olympic Committee since 1985 and President of the Monaco Olympic Committee, Monaco considers sport a real priority nationally. From primary school up to adult age, Monaco offers all citizens and residents high-quality sporting infrastructure and facilities which will allow them to regularly participate in the Summer and Winter Olympic Games and the Youth Olympic Games in a spirit of fraternity with the whole of the great Olympic family. We hope that the Paralympic and Olympic Games in Tokyo be successful and trust that they will be so, and that all athletes will ensure that the spirit and the idea of the Olympics lives on. I thank you.
I thank the Ambassador of the Principality of Monaco for her efforts with her colleague, the Ambassador of Qatar, in promoting this resolution. I now give the floor to the representative of Singapore, Mr. Given Ang.
Mr. President, my delegation would like to express our appreciation to Japan for their work on a draft resolution titled Building a Peaceful and Better World Through Sport and the Olympic Ideal. Singapore is pleased to co-sponsor this resolution, and we wish Japan every success hosting the Olympic and Paralympic Games in 2020. Sport is a phenomenon that brings both tangible and unseen benefits to societies. Sport has a unique ability to bring diverse people and communities together. We celebrate our sporting heroes as a nation. We take part in sporting activities with family, friends, colleagues, as well as strangers, deepening our bonds in the process. Through sport, we teach our children values, such as showing care to others in society. Sport is also an important enabler of sustainable development and is recognized for its contribution to development and peace in its promotion of tolerance and respect and the empowerment of individuals and communities. Sport is an important part of Singapore's nation building and national identity. In 2012, we launched Vision 2030, Singapore's national sports blueprint, which empowers Singaporeans to live better through sport. Vision 2030 envisages sport as a driving force for positive change by strengthening individuals, communities, and the nation through a lifetime of sporting opportunities. Today, we are witnessing the positive impact of this. There has been an increase in the overall physical activity levels across different age segments, as well as the percentage of Singaporeans who view sport as an activity that promotes social cohesion. In Singapore, sport plays a key role in bringing Singaporeans of different social and educational backgrounds, ethnicities, and religions together. Under Vision 2030, the Sports Facilities Master Plan guides our development of community nodes and innovative spaces to serve sporting needs at the national, regional, town, and neighborhood levels, so that the majority of Singaporeans have access to public sports and recreational facilities within walking distance from their homes. We also established Active SG as the national movement for sport and physical activity, integrating and activating spaces, programs, and partnerships to create sporting opportunities for all. There are now more than 1.85 million Active SG members and more than 10,000 Active SG programs for children, adults, seniors, and persons with disabilities, which create opportunities for them to exercise and to play together. We strongly believe in sport without boundaries, where sport should be inclusive, affordable, and easily accessible, regardless of age, ability, gender, or social status. The Sport Cares initiative was launched in 2012 as a force for social good to engage youth at risk and to mitigate youth delinquency. Programs such as the Saturday Night Lights provides a platform for youth at risk to play and experience formal football training while learning life skills and values. This initiative has since grown to include programs for seniors and persons with disabilities and special needs. Our national sport volunteer movement, Team Nila, also creates opportunities to bring different segments of the community together to give back to society through a common passion for sport. Team Nila volunteers have contributed to the success of many sporting events hosted by Singapore, such as the 28th Southeast Asian Games. At the regional and international levels, sport transcends national boundaries and plays an important role in bringing people together, building bridges and understanding between societies. As we speak, more than 5,000 athletes are competing across 56 sports in the 30th Southeast Asian Games in the Philippines, in the spirit of friendly competition that reflects and reaffirms the close ties of friendship, community, and family among the peoples and countries of our region. Mr. President, Singapore renews our call to harness and recognize the value of sport in our aspirations to build a more inclusive, sustainable, and prosperous future for our peoples. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Singapore, and I give the floor to the representative of Greece, His Excellency Maria Teofili. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. President, dating back to the 8th century BC, the ancient Olympic Games were a force for peace and solidarity among ancient Greek city-states that could declare truce for a period of 7 days before the beginning and after the end of the Games. The ultimate goal was the peaceful conduct of the Games, which was ensured through the protection of the city from invasion and through the orderly of individuals and state authorities to refrain from interfering with the safe passage of the athletes. As Thucydides claims, when states violated the truce, their athletes were banned from participating in the Games. The concept of the Olympic truce was born in the age of antiquity, and it was followed for a period of 1,200 years. Greeks viewed the Games as an opportunity to replace conflict with friendly competition. However, the ideal of truce was also of great importance for the revival of the Olympic Games in the modern era as an invaluable tool to advance international cooperation and promote world peace. In today's world, emphasis on Olympic peace has become a major feature of modern Olympic ideology. The foundation of the International Olympic Truce Center, for the creation of which Greece actively engaged with the International Olympic Committee, provided a new dynamism to the pursuit of peace. Most importantly, the inclusion of the Olympic truce in the UN framework through the adoption of the relevant resolutions granted a distinct role to the ideal. We should bear in mind that in a world of differences, inequalities, and conflicts, even an agreement for a temporary truce is an achievement for the international community. Therefore, it is our responsibility to continue to promote the Olympic truce and spare no effort to ensure its actual implementation. In 2020, Japan will host the Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Winter Games. I seize this opportunity to wish Japan every success in this demanding endeavor. As for the rest of us, it is our task to fulfill our responsibilities by observing the Olympic truce and thus making peace an attainable goal. We should all find inspiration in next year's Olympic Games and reflect on how sports could be used as a useful tool to reduce tensions and build bridges. Thank you.
Son Excellence.
I thank Her Excellency Ambassador Theophili for her statement, and I give the floor to the representative of China. You have the floor.
Mr. President, the Chinese delegation supports the adoption by the General Assembly of the resolution on Olympic truce, as this resolution represents the call of justice by all member states. China wishes the 32nd Tokyo Summer Olympic Games a complete success. We also welcome the delegation of Japan to participate in today's meeting, and we welcome the president of the Tokyo Organizing Committee to participate in today's meeting. As a co-sponsor of the resolution on Olympic truce, China urges all member states to act in accordance with the requirements of the resolution by striving to bridge differences, resolve disputes, and stop the use of all military force and hostility during the Olympic Games. Sports are an important indicator of social development and human progress. The Olympic spirit is the common aspiration of people around the world, as it always advocates unity, friendship, peace, and the exchanges between and the integration of different countries and civilizations, as well as their harmonious coexistence. The Olympic Games is not only an arena for athletes, but also a bridge of friendship for people of all countries. The modern Olympic Games brings together people of different countries, ethnicities, and cultural backgrounds, enhances mutual understanding, promotes social cohesion, and has greatly contributed to world peace and development. Looking around the world, the international community is faced with multiple challenges. Unilateralism, protectionism, and bullying behaviors have severely undermined multilateralism, disrupted international rule of law, artificially created confrontations, damaged mutual trust, and friendship among peoples of all countries. Many people of insight are worried that the world will witness a great fracture. The international community is at a crossroads. Do we want multilateralism or unilateralism? Unity or division? Cooperation or confrontation? Progress or regress? On these major issues of principle, China's attitude is very clear. We firmly stand by multilateralism, signed with the vast majority of the UN members, stand for fairness and justice, and signed with the trends of the times. We share the same world and a common future. China will always be a builder of world peace, a contributor to global development, a defender of international order, and will work towards building a community of shared future for mankind. In 2022, Beijing will host the 24th Winter Olympic Games. This marks the return of the Winter Olympic Games to a city that has successfully hosted the 29th Summer Olympic Games. China will work closely with the International Olympic Committee to present a fantastic, extraordinary, and excellent Olympic Games to the world, which will advance the development of the Olympic Games and the winter sports, and fully bring into play the positive role of sports in world peace, development, and people-to-people and cultural exchanges. We will hold a Green Olympic Games and prioritize ecological consideration, resources conservation, and environmental friendliness by developing and implementing a low-carbon management work plan, whereby green power will be used in all Winter Olympic venues to strive for carbon neutrality. We will adhere to the principle of wide participation, joint contribution, and benefit sharing by actively mobilizing social forces for the preparation of the Games and accelerating the development of and promotion of winter sports. We will put people at the center so as to benefit our people and also allow women, children, persons with disabilities to have more opportunities to take part in sports activities. We will continue to promote openness in Olympic Games, and through the Beijing Winter Olympic Games, we will strengthen sports cooperation and people-to-people and culture exchanges between China and the rest of the world. China will create a new window for promoting the Olympic spirit and exchange among civilizations and mutual learnings. We will combat corruption and uphold integrity in hosting the Olympic Games, tighten oversight of the preparation, adopt zero tolerance for doping so that the Beijing Winter Olympic Games will be as clean and pure as ice and snow. Welcome to the Beijing Winter Olympic Games in February 2022. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Yun Zhang, Permanent Representative of China, and I give the floor to the delegation of Cuba.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, President. We would like to thank you for convening this debate on item 11 of the plenary's agenda, Sport for Development and Peace, building a peaceful and better world through sport and the Olympic ideal, under which draft resolution A74L18 and has been tabled, co-sponsored by our delegation. We would like to take this opportunity to thank the delegation of Japan for presenting this draft resolution and for its efforts during the negotiations. Consideration of this issue in the United Nations bolsters its value as a decisive factor for development and peace. President, we reaffirm, as established by UNESCO, that practicing physical education and sport is a fundamental right for all and contributes to the comprehensive and harmonious development of humankind. We must ensure that the mechanisms and institutions for the exercise of this right exist and function properly without any discriminations or limitations. In this regard, whilst much progress has been made internationally, much remains to be done to ensure and guarantee that this right can be exercised systematically by children, women, older persons, and persons with disabilities. In this regard, we must also ensure, given that the technological component, doesn't substitute the benefits of social interaction, and that urban infrastructures do meet the needs and requirements of all of these groups without any barriers or obstacles. We must also work to change the perception of sport as just another chore or just a simple hobby for some people. Sport and physical education must be part of our life culture and an intrinsic component of our daily lives. President, following the triumph of the Cuban Revolution on the 1st of January 1959, sport became a right for all people in Cuba, to the benefit of their quality of life. The widespread practice of sport ever since is one of the main achievements of our revolution under the leadership of Comandante Fidel Castro Ruiz. To make this principle into a reality, practicing sport in Cuba was established as a constitutional right. The recently approved Cuban Constitution, approved by the National Assembly of Popular Power and ratified by popular vote on the 24th of February 2019, states, and I quote, "All people have a right to physical education, sport, and recreation as essential elements of their quality of life." The national education system in Cuba guarantees the inclusion of the teaching and practice of physical education and sport as part of the integral training during childhood, adolescence, and youth. The state ensures the conditions, guaranteeing that the necessary resources are devoted to promoting and practicing sport and recreation for the Cuban people, as well as preparing, nurturing, and developing sporting talents. The institutionalization of sport in Cuba resulted in the creation of the National Institute of Sport, Physical Culture and Recreation, which is the governing body of the Cuban sporting movement, and it coordinates the specialized educational centers and sporting facilities. We prioritize training high-performing athletes and guaranteeing the quality of their sporting careers. The Cuban people feel proud of all the athletes who, through their sacrifice and dedication, have raised our small island so high. Our promotion of a culture of physical activity and the quality of the training of our athletes are internationally recognized. In this regard, Cuba has shared its best practices and experiences in response to requests for cooperation from a large number of developing countries. President, we reiterate our condemnation of any attempt to politicize sport, as well as any action aimed at stealing sporting talent, particularly from athletes in developing countries. This negative practice must cease. Sport must be seen as a bridge for peace and for promoting development and understanding. Thank you very much. I would like to thank the representative of Cuba, and I now give the floor to His Excellency the Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Cyprus.
Mr. President, fully subscribing to the statement of the European Union, I wish to make some additional remarks because of my country's strong links with the Olympic ideal formed through Cyprus city-states' participation in the Olympic Games since their initiation in antiquity. I would like to thank Japan for bringing forward the resolution on the Olympic ideal this year and wish it every success in organizing the next Olympiad. I welcome the President of Tokyo 2020, Mr. Yoshiro Mori. I wish also to express appreciation to the President of the International Olympic Committee, Thomas Bach, for his presence here today and his work to promote the ideals that the Olympic Games stand for. If Olympic ideals were upheld, things would have been much easier for us here at the United Nations. The creation of a peaceful environment with the hope that this would have implications more lasting than the duration of the Games themselves was always consubstantial to the Olympic ideal. The sacred tradition of the Olympic truce, the cessation of hostilities before, during, and after the Games to ensure the safe passage of athletes was underpinned by three morals: the futility of war, the denunciation of violence and subjugation, and the superiority of pursuits that bring people together, the quest for freedom, shared values, the intrinsically noble character of fairness and synergy, and the recognition of their contribution to the prosperity of all and to the further development of culture and civilization. Sport has a unique capacity to bring people together. It is also the most powerful tool to build ethos amongst our youth, creating a culture of sportsmanship, fair play, hard work, and personal sacrifice in pursuit of a goal, dignified rivalry, relishing victory, and accepting defeat can go farther than any knowledge-based education. If we manage to build this values-based culture at the individual, community, and national levels, the mission of the UN to bring peace, development, respect for rules, respect for rights and freedoms, equality, solidarity, tolerance and non-discrimination, social inclusion, health, and many others can be made so much more feasible. Cyprus remains committed to the endeavor of promoting peace by bringing to the forefront the virtues of humanity that prove that we were created for something more noble than conflict, and striving for the prevalence of culture, peace, and security as the core instincts of human civilization. Thank you, Mr. President.
أشكر سعادة السفير المندوب الدائم.
I thank the distinguished representative of Cyprus and now give the floor to the representative of Cambodia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The importance of sport in the society is undeniable. Sporting activity brings people together, foster understanding and tolerance among the participants, and promote important values of teamwork, discipline, and perseverance. Sporting activities serve as a venue of entertainment and recreation, as well as brings a valuable educational dimension. To young children, sports serve a powerful learning tool, reinforcing value of hard work, respect, and equality. Mr. President, sport and Olympic ideals contribute to building a peaceful and better world by educating youth through mutual understanding, spirit of friendship, solidarity, and fair play. In this light, the social value of sport is unquestionable. A spectrum of sustainable development goals further acknowledge the important role sport play in the promotion of health, education, and advancement of peaceful society. Sport contributes to the improvement of health and fitness of society by involving people in physical activity. It instills healthy lifestyle choices among young people and strengthens societal welfare into the future. Mr. President, sport plays an important part in children's development, opening children to a value of cooperation, teamwork, and tolerance. Developing this skill at an early age will aid children immensely in their professional futures. Furthermore, sport encourages balanced participation, promotes self-confidence of children, and addresses gender issues. Sport is an important enabler of peace to strengthen friendly relations among nations, people, and community, regardless of cultural differences and political viewpoints. In this context, Cambodia will proudly host the 2023 Southeast Asian Games, SEA Games, and confident that this will promote friendly relations among the participating states and beyond. In conclusion, Mr. President, Cambodia is pleased to join other member states in co-sponsoring the draft resolution in document A/74/L18, which has just been introduced by Japan. The Royal Government of Cambodia will continue to promote sport to advance its contribution to the global peace and development. I thank you.
أشكر السيد ممثل كمبوديا على كلمة.
I thank the distinguished representative of Cambodia and now give the floor to the representative of Israel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sport is a universal language centered around people, through which both participants and spectators learn to celebrate excellence and discover the idea of sportsmanship. The idea that you must try your hardest from start to finish, that you must be graceful and respectful towards your opponent, no matter if you win or lose, and regardless of your opponent's background, religion, gender, or nationality. We are proud to have co-sponsored this important resolution, which encompasses many ideals that are paramount for achieving peace and a healthy global society. This is one of the most important contributions of sports. Israel is host to numerous programs aimed at enabling and encouraging all members of its diverse society to take part in sports activities. Organizations like Budo for Peace use traditional martial arts to teach behavioral values of tolerance, mutual respect, and harmony to youth from Arab, Jewish, and Christian communities. The Israel Sports Center for Disabled works with athletes with disabilities from all backgrounds in a variety of sports. And most recently, the Alliance for Middle East Peace was nominated as one of 8 international finalists for the prestigious Prince Albert of Monaco's Peace and Sport Award for the Athletes of Peace event it hosted earlier this year. This event brought together 400 Jewish, Arab, Bedouin, ultra-Orthodox, immigrants, refugees, and special needs participants to celebrate the International Day of Sports for Development and Peace. Mr. President, professional athletes are often idolized by their fans. Their achievements on the field inspire millions, and their conduct both on and off the field influences the behavior, perceptions of lots of people. When fans see their role models embracing diversity on the field and respecting their opponents, it goes a long way to promoting diversity in society. However, when role models act in an ungracious or hostile manner, this has the opposite effect. When athletes are excluded from sporting events, this negates the essence of sportsmanship. As enshrined so well in the Olympic Truce, politics have no place in the world of sports. It is up to all who believe in peace and equality to ensure that international sports competitions are open to everyone. We must not turn a blind eye to those who insist on politicizing sports events, and the Olympics in particular. Unfortunately, as we have seen again over the last year, Iran still refuses to allow its athletes to compete against Israeli opponents, forcing their own athletes to shamefully forfeit or lose in competitions to avoid the possibility of competing as required. I say force, as despite Iran's claims to the contrary, the whole world witnessed only a few months ago at the Judo World Championships in Tokyo how disgraceful and heartbreaking it can be for these athletes who spend their lifetimes practicing and preparing to compete, only to be bullied by their own country who refuses to let them fulfill their dreams and potential when they are so close to achieving their ultimate goal. Mr. President, as stated in the resolution before us, sports can contribute to an atmosphere of tolerance and understanding amongst people and nations. If member states and international sporting bodies, such as the International Olympic Committee, strive to promote peace and understanding through sport, surely they cannot tolerate such behavior, which the IOC has stated in the past is contrary to the rules of fair play and against the spirit of friendship embodied in the Olympic values. We encourage all member states, and particularly the co-sponsors of this resolution, to not simply adopt the resolution in theory, but to try to fulfill its intent. We therefore support the International Judo Federation for its recent decision to stand up against discrimination and finally suspend Iran from all competitions for its ongoing refusal to allow their athletes to compete against their Israeli counterparts. We also support the International Paralympic Committee for stripping Malaysia of the right to host the 2019 World Para Swimming Championships after they disgracefully refused to let Israeli athletes compete. We believe that other international sporting bodies should also work to stop this behavior, which is in direct contrast to the resolution we are discussing today and a blatant violation of the Olympic Charter and the IOC Code of Ethics. It is hard to believe that in this day and age, member states still strive to host international sporting events while not permitting the participation of all athletes. Mr. President, the Olympics is one of the most remarkable global events. Through sports, we can promote peace and development as we run, swim, and jump towards the future. We wish Japan the best of luck in hosting the upcoming 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games, which will without a doubt inspire millions around the world. As an enthusiastic fan of the Olympic Games and the Olympic ideas, I look forward to the Games, hoping that sports will be the winner, promoting peace and dialogue between all nations and not boycotts and politics. Thank you, Mr. President.
أشكر ممثل إسرائيل وأعطي الكلمة.
I thank the representative of Israel and now give the floor to the permanent representative of Kenya. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Mr. President, thank you for giving me the floor. And may I also, from the onset, thank Japan for having introduced this timely resolution on sport and development and peace, building a peaceful and better world through sport and the Olympic ideal, which we are proud to co-sponsor. We recognize that the valuable contribution of sport in promoting education, sustainable development, peace, cooperation, social inclusion, and health at the local, regional, and international levels, and noting that as declared in the 2005 World Summit outcome, sports can contribute to an atmosphere of tolerance and understanding amongst peoples and nations. Kenya takes pride to be part of the wider Olympic family and is globally regarded as a sporting nation due to our patriotic and gallant athletes whose exploits have defined Kenya's lasting sporting brand. Mr. President, we note that the General Assembly, in its resolution 73/24 of 3rd December 2018 on sport, as an enabler of sustainable development, called upon future hosts of the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games to include sport as appropriate in conflict prevention activities and to ensure that the effective implementation of the Olympic Truce takes place during the Games. It is expected that the Tokyo 2020 Games will be a useful opportunity to harness the power of sport to advance the world by fostering an atmosphere of peace, development, resilience, tolerance, and understanding. Mr. President, Kenya has prioritized the promotion of sports by enacting the Sports Act of 2013 with the purpose of harnessing sports for development, to encourage and promote drug-free sports and recreation, to establish sports institutions, as well as to provide for administration and management of sports and sports facilities countrywide. Mr. President, in promoting Paralympics in the country, Kenya, that has at least 1.2 million people with physical challenges, assists many by enrolling them to special Olympic programs, essentially because sports help in developing their psychomotor, cognitive, as well as physical and social skills. The active involvement of persons with disabilities in sports and Paralympic Games contributes to the full and equal realization of their human rights as well as respect for their inherent dignity. In the pastoral areas of the country, Kenya has encouraged sports as a means to foster peace among neighbors. Secondly, in recognizing that sports can deter radicalization, prevent violent extremism, and prevent violence in general, we therefore welcome the designation of 6th April as the International Day of Sport for Development and Peace. Mr. President, in conclusion, Kenya reiterates that the promotion of sports for development and peace needs all our support and commends the International Olympic Committee, the International Paralympic Committee for their noble tasks, and finally wish Japan a successful hosting of the Tokyo 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games. I thank you for your attention.
I thank His Excellency the Ambassador Permanent Representative of Kenya, and now I give the floor to the Observer of International Olympic Committee, the President of the International Olympic Committee, His Excellency Thomas Pash.
Mr. President, please allow me to thank you for the great honor to address the General Assembly today. My thanks and gratitude also go to the government of Japan, under the leadership of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, for submitting this resolution on building a peaceful and better world through sport and the Olympic ideal. On behalf of the International Olympic Committee, I would like to thank in particular the co-chairs, Monaco and Qatar, of the Group of Friends of Sport, as well as the many member states that have co-sponsored this resolution. As a permanent observer to the UN, the IOC has closely accompanied this process. It is indeed encouraging to see the wide level of support from the member states for this resolution. When our founder, Pierre de Coubertin, revived the Olympic Games exactly 125 years ago, he saw it as a way to promote peace among all nations and people. In this, our 125th anniversary year, the resolution you're adopting demonstrates clearly that this vision endures. This resolution is a powerful reminder of the shared values on which both the United Nations and the IOC are built. As the UN looks ahead to its 75th anniversary next year, what better time than this Olympic year 2020 to celebrate these our shared values. As UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres eloquently declared, and I quote, "If there is a true symbol of peace in our world, it is the Olympic spirit," end of quote. With the adoption of the Olympic Truce resolution today, you are supporting the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 as this true symbol of peace in our world. Today is therefore a welcome opportunity to reaffirm the commitment of the IOC to our shared values of peace, solidarity, and respect. Both our organizations are guided by universality, equality, non-discrimination, and the rule of law. The alignment of our common values and principles are reflected in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. In these SDGs, you specifically highlighted sport as an important enabler to achieve, in particular, peace, health, education, or empowering women. Our commitment to sustainability is reflected in our comprehensive Olympic Agenda 2020 reforms. In fact, we have made sustainability a central element to all our activities. We walk the talk. This is true for Olympic House, our new IOC headquarter building, which is in its category the most sustainable building in the world. It is also true for the way the Olympic Games are run in the future. The Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 will be the most prominent expression of the IOC commitment to our shared values and to the SDGs in particular. Thanks to Olympic Agenda 2020, we will achieve gender balance at the Olympic Games for the first time in Tokyo, with the highest number of female athletes ever in history at about 49%, sending a strong signal on gender equality to the world. In the spirit of our reforms, our friends from the Tokyo 2020 Organizing Committee, under the great leadership of its President, His Excellency Yoshiro Mori, are promoting sustainability in an outstanding way. Tokyo aims for carbon-neutral games. From the Olympic medals made from recycled electronics to powering the Olympic Games with renewable energy or using zero-emission vehicles, and many more actions, the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 will be an inspiration for sustainable development and inclusion, also with regard to the Paralympic Games. This is why I would like to express my gratitude, in particular to President Mori, for his unwavering personal dedication to our values and principles. The Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 will be followed by far more than half of the world's entire population. Billions of people will see the greatest sports event on our planet. The athletes from each and every one of your countries will inspire the world. They will inspire and unite your people. They will bring pride and joy to everyone. It is their sporting performance, their effort, their excellence, their emotions, their joy, their tears that create the magic of the Olympic Games. At the same time, I can tell you from my own experience as an Olympic champion, participating in the Olympic Games makes you humble. It makes you humble because you become part of something bigger. You are part of an event that unites the entire world. You are part of an experience that promotes the shared values of all humankind. You are part of a truly global community. At the Olympic Games, there is no discrimination. At the Olympic Games, everyone is equal. At the Olympic Games, everyone respects the same rules. The Olympic Games are the only event today that brings the entire world together in peaceful competition. In Tokyo, the world will see athletes from all 206 national Olympic committees and the IOC Refugee Olympic team united. These 11,000 best athletes of the world are competitors in sport, but at the same time are living peacefully together under one roof in the Olympic Village. This is the Olympic message of peace to all humankind. Our gracious Japanese friends and hosts will interpret this mission of the Olympic Games in an excellent way. We can only achieve this universality if we enable everyone to participate. For this, we need solidarity. This is why the IOC distributes 90% of all its revenues for the benefit of the athletes and the development of sport and Paralympic sport around the globe. In hard figures, this means $5 billion in the 4 years of one Olympiad. Each and every one of your national Olympic committees benefits from this support. But please do not worry. Not a single cent of taxpayers' money is in the IOC budget. Another illustration of this solidarity is the IOC Refugee Olympic team. Exactly 4 years ago, in this very place, I announced the creation of this Refugee Olympic team. These refugee athletes then competed on an equal basis with all the other athletes at the Olympic Games Rio 2016. Standing here again, 4 years later, I wish I could announce to you that we do not need an IOC Refugee Olympic team anymore. But unfortunately, the reasons why we created this team continue to persist. This is why we will have once again an IOC Refugee Olympic team for the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020. In this way, we want to send a strong message of hope to all refugees, and at the same time, we want to raise awareness across the world about the global refugee crisis. In order to achieve this global solidarity and true universality, the IOC and the Olympic Games must be politically neutral. We can only accomplish our mission to unite the world if the Olympic Games stand above and beyond any and all political differences. Our political neutrality goes hand in hand with the autonomy of sport. You can only be neutral if you're autonomous. With this autonomy, we can ensure the worldwide equal application of the rules and laws of sport. starting with the adoption of the historic resolution A/RES/69/6 in 2014. You, the UN General Assembly, have recognized and supported this autonomy that is so central to our mission. This is why I'm grateful that I can personally ask you for your continued support for this autonomy of sport and for this political neutrality of the IOC and the Olympic Games. In our fragile world, we see our shared values and principles challenged in many ways, not only in the international community, but also in sport. In sport, we can see an increasing erosion of the respect for the global rule of law. Some believe the rule of law does not apply to them, or even want to impose their own laws on others. Solidarity is under threat when mistrust and self-interest is on the rise. Some want to devalue the Olympic Games to a purely profit-driven business model. To them, we say, we are a values-based organization. For the IOC, money is not an end in itself. For the IOC, money is just a means to achieve our mission of uniting the world in peace and solidarity. Universality is threatened when our political neutrality is not respected. Our political neutrality is undermined whenever organizations or individuals attempt to use the Olympic Games as a stage for their own agendas, as legitimate as they may be. The Olympic Games are a sports celebration of our shared humanity. They are not and must never be a platform to advance a political or any other potentially divisive ends. The IOC is fully committed to preserve and strengthen these values and principles of respect for the rule of law, solidarity, and political neutrality. But our commitment is not enough. We depend on the support of you, the governments, for our mission and our neutrality. This is why we are so grateful for your support for this Olympic Truce resolution. With this resolution, you're also supporting these values and principles that unite us. Please take these values and principles into account whenever you have to take decisions that affect sport. In this Olympic spirit of universality, solidarity, and peace, I invite you all to join hands and to celebrate our unity in all our diversity at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 and beyond. Mr. President, let us demonstrate together that our shared humanity is stronger than the forces that want to divide us. Thank you very much.
أشكر السيد توماس باش.
I thank Mr. Thomas Bach, the chairman of the IOC, as observer. And thus we have heard the last speaker in the debate on agenda item 11. We shall now proceed to consider draft resolution A/74/L18. Building peaceful, better world through sport and the Olympic ideal. Before giving we have closed the door for sponsoring this draft resolution. And now I would like to give the floor to the Secretariat.
Mr. President, through co-sponsorship, I should like to announce that since the submission of the draft resolution and in addition to those delegations listed on the L document, the following countries have also co-sponsored A/74/L18. Afghanistan, Albania, Algeria, Andorra, Angola, Argentina, Azerbaijan, Bahamas, Bahrain, Barbados, Belarus, Belgium, Belize, Benin, Bhutan, Plurinational State of Bolivia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Botswana, Brunei Darussalam, Bulgaria, Burundi, Cape Verde, Cambodia, Cameroon, Canada, Central African Republic, Chad, Colombia, Comoros, Congo, Costa Rica, Croatia, Cuba, Cyprus, Czechia, Côte d'Ivoire, Denmark, Djibouti, Egypt, El Salvador, Eritrea, Estonia, Ethiopia, Fiji, France, Gabon, Gambia, Georgia, Germany, Ghana, Greece, Grenada, Guatemala, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Guyana, Haiti, Honduras, Hungary, Iceland, India, Indonesia, Iraq, Ireland, Italy, Jordan, Kazakhstan, Kiribati, Kuwait, Kyrgyzstan, Lesotho, Liberia, Libya, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Madagascar, Malawi, Maldives, Mali, Malta, Marshall Islands, Mauritania, Mauritius, Mexico, Federated State of Micronesia, Mongolia, Montenegro, Morocco, Mozambique, Myanmar, Namibia, Nauru, Nepal, Netherlands, Niger, Nigeria, North Macedonia, Oman, Pakistan, Papua New Guinea, Peru, Philippines, Poland, Portugal, Qatar, Republic of Korea, Republic of Moldova, Rwanda, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, San Marino, Saudi Arabia, Senegal, Serbia, Seychelles, Sierra Leone, Singapore, Slovakia, Slovenia, Solomon Islands, Somalia, South Africa, South Sudan, Sudan, Suriname, Sweden, Switzerland, Tajikistan, Thailand, Timor-Leste, Togo, Tonga, Trinidad and Tobago, Turkmenistan, Tuvalu, Uganda, Ukraine, United Republic of Tanzania, United States, Uzbekistan, Vanuatu, Vietnam, Yemen, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. If any other countries wish to co-sponsor A/74/L18, please signify by pressing the microphone button. Mr. President, I see Burkina Faso, Panama, although Panama is on the L document, New Zealand, although New Zealand is also on the L document, and Syrian Arab Republic. Thank you, Mr. President.
I would like to thank the Secretariat for their statement, and I would like also to thank this huge number of member states that co-sponsored this draft resolution. I would like also to thank the Japanese delegation who have prepared this list and this draft resolution, and in a way that united all member states. May I take it that it is the wish of the General Assembly to adopt this draft resolution unanimously? It is so decided.
It is a big pleasure for me to thank His Excellency, Mr. Prime Minister Mori Yoshiri, President of the Tokyo Organization Committee of the Olympic and Paralympic Games, for his presence and for the presenting the resolution. It's a big honor for us to listen to him presenting the resolution. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much and have a safe trip back. أعود الآن إلى أعمالنا.
Now I go back to our agenda, and I would like to give the floor to the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran, who requested the right of reply. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. As usual today, the representative of Israeli regime made unfounded claim counter the situation on the ground. These allegations are used as tools to divert attention from the brutalities of this regime against Palestinians. It is indeed very ironic that a regime famous for its atrocities, apartheid policies, which is well documented in different United Nations organs and agencies, talking about its non-discriminatory policy on a sport. Israeli regime officials had better not to speak about their inclusive approach to a sport, while discrimination against Palestinians is attribute of this apartheid regime. With its shameful 72 years of history, that could be merely boiled down to a couple of words: occupation, brutality, massacre, and flagrant violation of human rights, while very basic rights of innocent people of Palestinians are grossly violated on a daily basis, how we could expect this regime provide opportunity for Palestinians under its illegitimate sovereignty to be involved in sports events? It goes without saying that the Israeli regime has a long history in following the opportunistic policy to mislead others and divert attention from its inhuman and savage actions against innocent Palestinians and other nations in the Middle East. Thank you, Mr. President.
I would like to thank the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran for his intervention. In exercise of the right of reply, thus the General Assembly has concluded this stage of its consideration of agenda item 11, and now we will consider agenda item 31 entitled Prevention of Armed Conflict, Draft Resolution A/74/L12/Revision 1. The President is rereading. The General Assembly will now consider agenda item 31 entitled Prevention of Armed Conflict and its sub-item A to take action on a draft resolution issued as document A/74/L12/Revision 1. And now I would like to give the floor to the representative of Ukraine to introduce the draft resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the draft resolution A/74/L12/Rev1, which I have the honor to introduce today under agenda item 31A, Prevention of Armed Conflict, focuses on a pressing legal and political issue, the problem of militarization of the occupied territory of Ukraine, in particular of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol. The draft addresses a matter of fundamental concern to my country and, I believe, UN membership at large. Since February 2014, the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol have been occupied by the Russian Federation. The attempt to annex the sovereign Ukrainian territory was not recognized by the international community, as evidenced by the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 68/262 on the territorial integrity of Ukraine. After the Russian Federation occupied Crimea, the progressive militarization of the Crimean Peninsula is being carried out with no respite. It includes, in particular, destabilizing transfers by Russia of weapon systems, including nuclear-capable aircraft and missiles, weapons, ammunition, and military personnel to the territory of Ukraine. The occupation and subsequent militarization of Crimea led to the expansion of the area of use of Russian warships and military aircraft in the Black Sea region and far beyond in the entire Mediterranean basin. Thus, such activity has far-reaching consequences for security not only in the Black Sea area, but in the whole South Europe, as well as in the North Africa and the Middle East. Multiple military exercises conducted by Russian armed forces in Crimea and around reflect Russia's aggressive policy towards Ukraine and other Black Sea littoral states. Such exercises also entail considerable long-term negative environmental consequences in the region. The Russian Federation also actively militarizes the Sea of Azov, by increasing the number of warships and their expansion to the whole territory of the sea. The progressive militarization of the Sea of Azov has implications not only for maritime trade and supplies into Ukraine, but also poses an additional military threat to Ukraine and leads to escalation of security situation in the region. The illegal construction of the Kerch Strait bridge between Russia and temporarily occupied Crimea has substantially contributed to this threat, in particular by facilitating further militarization of Crimea and involvement of additional Russian maritime and other forces to the area under the pretext of protection of the bridge and its infrastructure. Unlawful actions by the Russian Federation in the Black Sea on 25 November 2018, when 3 Ukrainian vessels were blocked from entry to the Sea of Azov via the Kerch Strait and subsequently attacked and captured by Russian ships under the artificial pretext of violation of Russian borders, proves yet again the urgency of the problem of militarization of Crimea and parts of the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. We positively note the release by the Russian Federation of 24 servicemen and vessels. Regrettably, however, the vessels themselves were returned in an unusable condition without weapons, documents, and parts of their equipment, including sensitive communication systems. Mr. President, I already stressed that as the Russian Federation continues the militarization of the occupied Crimean Peninsula and the sea area around it, the security situation in the region keeps deteriorating. What is more alarming is that the occupying power is taking steps to nuclearize Crimea, in particular by deploying carriers and other means capable of delivering nuclear weapons, as well as by actively developing nuclear infrastructure on the peninsula. Taking into account the strategic location of Crimea in the region, as well as Ukraine being part of the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons as a non-nuclear weapon state, deployment of nuclear forces in Crimea by the Russian Federation constitutes a serious challenge to the existing non-proliferation regime and must meet due response by the international community. On the broader international scale, advances of Russia in its hybrid war against Ukraine, if not resolutely addressed and reversed, will invite aggressive adventures on the part of other, so far hesitant actors, opening a Pandora box in other parts of the world. Therefore, by tackling this threat, each and every UN member state will contribute to its own peace and security. Mr. President, given the current volatile security situation in the mentioned areas and its possible far-reaching negative implications, Ukraine, together with a group of 23 states, submitted an updated draft resolution called Problem of the Militarization of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the City of Sevastopol, Ukraine, as well as parts of the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. As you can see, the number of co-sponsors has increased up to 42. We are very grateful for this strong solidarity and support, and I believe we are speaking now on behalf of all co-sponsors and wider UN membership. The main goals of the resolution is to urge the Russian Federation to withdraw its military forces from Crimea and to stop the illegal occupation of Ukraine's territory, as well as to ensure that Russia holds harassment of commercial vessels and restrictions to international shipping in the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. By bringing before the General Assembly the issue of militarization of Crimea, Ukraine and other co-sponsors do not seek confrontation or politicization. Rather, it is a matter of utmost importance for every member state to fully support the principles of international law and the UN Charter. I hope this resolution will enjoy the same support and constructive attitude on the part of member states as did other General Assembly resolutions on Ukraine. I urge all member states to vote in favor. Such a vote will undoubtedly demonstrate your strong commitment to the principles of international law and the United Nations Charter. I thank you.
أشكر سعادة السفير.
I thank the distinguished ambassador and Permanent Representative of Ukraine. And we shall now proceed to consider draft resolution A/74/L12 Rev 1. I now give the floor for explanations of the vote before the vote. And I would like to remind the delegations that explanations of the vote are limited to 10 minutes. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation. You have the floor, sir.
Mr. President, the General Assembly takes action on resolutions that generally fall into three groups. The first group is consensus resolutions. They emerge out of tough work. Member states coordinate their positions. Often they have to go for uneasy compromises because they understand that such collective decisions send very powerful signals. Fortunately, the majority of resolutions belong to this group. The second group is resolutions that, for some reasons, cannot be supported by some member states. As a result, as a rule, such scenarios also result from painstaking expert work. The General Assembly seeks to avoid such results because non-consensus character of such resolutions brings down the effectiveness of their implementation. And finally, there is a third, least numerous group of resolutions. It comprises resolutions that are put forward out of political considerations and have nothing to do with reality. Usually, such resolutions are supported by approximately 1/3 of member states that are guided by the bloc discipline. The majority of delegations normally either vote in abstention or take no part in the vote, thus showing their real attitude to such initiatives. As a rule, there are no expert consultations on such resolutions because those who put them forward have no objective to achieve consensus or win the majority of votes. Such resolutions have one distinctive feature. Right after their vote, the authors, in defiance of elementary arithmetic and common sense, start yelling about alleged significant support from the international community. Certainly, no one ever doubts lameness of such propositions. Today, we have to do with a resolution that clearly belongs to the third group. It is hard to comprehend what goals the authors of this draft are guided by if they insist that for the second year in a row, we should waste our time on considering a politicized and provocative text that is based on allegations, speculations, and distortions of fact. People of Crimea have long made their choice. Exposed to a threat of a blood-drenched massacre that was coming from nationalists who came to power in 2014, they decided to reunify with Russia. History has proven that this was a far-sighted step and the right thing to do because of people of Donbass who only proposed to Kiev to discuss some issues of concern with regard to the new state policy were welcomed by bombs, shells, and bullets. As a result, the ongoing internal conflict in Ukraine has killed, wounded, and badly injured thousands of people and turned millions more into refugees and IDPs. By various estimates, in Russia alone, there are from 3 to 4 million of Ukrainians who have either to live or earn their living there. This is a national tragedy, and the Maidan authorities and their Western sponsors try to hide it under the guise of mythical Russian aggression. President, the draft resolution before us is based on a barefaced lie and assertions that things look bad for Crimeans, that they are languishing against the Russian annexation and occupation. It is quite indicative that in order not to let people realise the absurdness of this Maidan propaganda, one of the resolution's provisions suggests that everyone should keep from visiting the Russian Crimea. To include this paragraph was a wise thing to do for the authors of the draft resolution, because everyone who goes to Crimea gets back with conclusions and assessments that are totally opposite to this, and that make the entire concept that the resolution rests upon collapse just like a house of cards. It would suffice just to ask the opinion of tourists who have numbered 7 million this year, 1 million of them to have come from the peninsula to the peninsula from Ukraine. They do not conceal what they think and readily share their impressions both in interviews and in social media. The content of the Ukrainian resolution or hearsay is something one would not like to dwell on, because it is a thick pack of lies and fables. Even the title is a lie. There is no problem of militarization of Crimea. Just for reference, under Russian-Ukrainian agreements, before 2014, Russia had the right to deploy up to 25,000 of military personnel in Crimea. In reality, there were only 12,000 of them against 15,000 Ukrainian. Now there are even fewer, and we openly inform the global community about it. I feel somewhat awkward about the colleagues in this room, whom the permanent mission of Ukraine is again dragging in fortuitous, politicized and provocative propaganda show. I say permanent mission of Ukraine, and I mean it because, to be frank, the true position of Ukraine is not clear to us. Today a meeting of the Normandy Quartet is held in Paris. In anticipation of this meeting, our Ukrainian colleagues did their best to create a favourable background, both in words and in deeds. Adoption of this resolution was meant to impair the constructive course of the Paris meeting. Authors of the draft took pains to take out of the closet all the skeletons that Ukrainian electorate had decided to commit to history when they voted for President Volodymyr Zelensky and his party. The President of Ukraine, by the way, told us and all the others many positive and inspiring things in the course of preparation for today's meeting. In any case, what he said is absolutely incompatible with the spiel that the mission of Ukraine now puts to your consideration. A question keeps popping up. Whose instructions do our Ukrainian colleagues carry out? Those of the Ukrainian people who are firmly committed to rapprochement with Russia and peace in their country, or those of the party of war that does not wish to give up its positions and therefore keeps Ukraine in a state of chaos, civil war, misery and poverty? Dear colleagues, we would like you to ask these questions to yourselves. That is why we asked to put to the vote the draft resolution proposed by Ukraine, Western countries and their satellites. In order not to have any doubts ever to the falsehood of the allegations, we ask you to vote against the resolution. Neither us nor the Crimeans have anything to conceal, but we have very much to be proud of. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation, and I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Syrian Arab Republic. Thank you, Mr. President. My delegation would like to express its position on draft resolution A/74/L.12/Rev1, bearing the title Problem of the Militarization of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol, Ukraine, as well as parts of the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. The delegation of the Syrian Arab Republic continues to consider that there are several negative practices by some members of the UN that lead to the misuse of the agenda item on the prevention of armed conflict. They do this by submitting politicized draft resolutions that lack consensus. And these members insist on a policy of exclusion, unilateral action, and the disregard of established methodologies that are based on holding consultations and on taking into consideration the concerns and positions of states and giving enough time to arrive at consensus draft resolutions. Colleagues, today we see a strange and dangerous tendency by some member states to abuse the General Assembly's agenda in order to exert political pressure and to further deepen disputes among states, even if this came at the cost of unnecessarily and needlessly flooding our program of work and draining the United Nations energy and its human and financial resources in a manner that undermines the main objectives and purposes of the Charter. In short, a draft resolution, as the one in document A/74/L12/Rev1, such a draft resolution is a clear reflection of political and financial polarization. It is a direct cause of the spread of disunity and discord. This draft resolution cannot be considered an attempt by its sponsors and supporters to achieve peace and security and development in that region, or for everyone with no exception or discrimination. Our legal understanding and our political position, we the Syrian Arab Republic, of the situation in Crimea is based on the fact that the results of the referendum that was conducted in that republic on the 16th of March 2014, the results of the referendum are now being reflected in the stable situation in that region. Mr. President, dear colleagues, we reaffirm that the draft resolution before us today is politicized. It lacks balance and does not reflect many of the facts and latest and current events. Therefore, this draft resolution cannot contribute towards achieving stability in that region. Rather, this draft resolution will allow some governments to take advantage of the current state of relations between the two historic neighbors, the Russian Federation and the Ukraine, in order to exert more political pressure on Moscow. Here, it is worth noting the summit currently being held by the leaders of the Normandy Quartet in Paris today. At the very same time, this meeting is being held at the General Assembly. This meeting is a clear example of giving a chance to multilateral diplomacy in order to resolve some of the disputes between the two neighbors. And based on this, we call on the sponsors of this draft resolution to reconsider their position. We ask them to give a serious and genuine chance to multilateral diplomacy. We ask them not to be a cause for entrenching the dispute between Moscow and Kiev. We ask them not to turn the United Nations General Assembly into a platform to escalate tension by proposing such draft resolutions that lack consensus. In closing, Mr. President, our position today, which opposes the politicization of the General Assembly, emanates from our respect for the Charter and international conventions. It emanates from our commitment to preserve the sanctity of methodology and work processes. We must take care not to engage the General Assembly in politicized matters and to avoid having its work program flooded by draft resolutions that don't enjoy consensus, especially since they do not serve the interest of resolving disputes at the regional and international levels and do not contribute to the preservation and maintenance of international peace and security or regional peace and security for that matter. Therefore, we will vote against the draft resolution in document A/74/L12/Rev1. We encourage everyone to vote against this draft resolution or to abstain from voting. I thank you, Mr. President. I thank the distinguished representative of the Syrian Arab Republic. We have thus listened to the last speaker in explanation of the vote before the vote. The Assembly will now take a decision on draft resolution A/74/L12/Revision 1, entitled Problem of the Militarization of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol, Ukraine, as well as parts of the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. For your information, the draft resolution has closed for e-sponsorship. I now give the floor to the representative of the Secretariat. You have the floor.
Mr. President, I should like to announce that since the submission of the draft resolution, and in addition to those delegations listed on the L document, the foreign countries have also become co-sponsors of A/74/L12/Revision 1. Liechtenstein, Marshall Islands, and New Zealand. If any other countries wish to co-sponsor A/74/L12/Revision 1, please signify by pressing the microphone button. Mr. President, I see none. Thank you.
إذن لقد
A vote has been requested. A recorded vote has been requested. We shall now begin the voting process.
المؤيدين للقرار
Will those in favor of resolution L12-Rev1 would please vote so? Those against, those abstaining.
Now voting on draft resolution A/74/L12 Revision 1, entitled Problem of the Militarization of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the City of Sevastopol, Ukraine, as well as parts of the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. Will all delegations confirm that the votes are accurately reflected on the screen? The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
The result of the vote is as follows. In favor, 63. Against, 19. Abstentions, 66 votes. Draft resolution A/74/L12 Rev 1 is adopted. Has been adopted. I now give the floor to those who wish to explain the vote after the vote. And before doing so, may I remind delegations that explanations of the vote are limited to 10 minutes. And the first speaker under this part is the distinguished representative of Singapore. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As a small country, Singapore is deeply committed to multilateralism and respect for international law. Singapore affirms the principles of respect for territorial integrity, non-interference in the domestic affairs of a sovereign state, respect for sovereignty, and the rule of law. Singapore opposes the annexation of any country or territory as it is a clear violation of international law. Singapore notes that there has been several changes made to the text of the resolution adopted this year. While we have concerns with some of the language used in the resolution, Singapore continues to support this resolution as a matter of principle because it is fundamentally related to the question of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Singapore also reaffirms its clear and consistent view that all countries must adhere to international law and support the right to the freedom of navigation as provided by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. I thank you very much, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished representative of Singapore. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Belarus.
President, the Republic of Belarus advocates peace and agreement in Ukraine. We care about the fate of our near neighbours, the kindred people of Ukraine. Settling the conflict through peaceful means is an imperative that is not subject to doubt. Compliance by the parties with the Minsk agreements remains the only proper basis for resolving the crisis. We intend to continue to do everything in our power to help the peace process. We are ready to continue to offer space for negotiations in the Minsk format. We also note that the process of the settlement has an important role for the monitoring mission of the OSCE, which includes representatives from Belarus. Belarus was against the resolution proposed by Ukraine in connection with our sustainable position on documents of this kind. We consistently are against overloading the agenda of the General Assembly and its specialized bodies with subjects that are used as a means of political conflict. Considering such resolutions within the UN only strengthens confrontation and does not help us to resolve the specific issues on the ground. Today's document only strengthens negative rhetoric and reduces the options for finding a peaceful solution to the situation. The draft also lacks the necessary references to the Minsk agreements. We think that only real, live dialogue and not unilateral accusations delivered from the UN's rostrum can, in practice, bring the long-awaited peace to Ukraine. Therefore, we support the efforts of the Trilateral Contact Group on Ukraine and its working subgroups, who regularly hold their meetings in Minsk. We welcome the latest round of negotiations taking place today in Paris in the Normandy format, and we hope that its results will provide a future positive trend. Thank you. I thank the distinguished representative of Belarus. I now give the floor to the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Thank you, Mr. President. In an explanation of vote, my delegation would like to reiterate its position on Russian and Ukrainian disputes. We are of the view that concerned parties should pursue the peaceful resolution of dispute through direct political dialogue in furthering efforts to achieve a workable solution to the issue on which agreements were reached in Minsk in 2015 and endorsed by Security Council Resolution 2202. While there is an agreed international mechanism in place, which is supported by the Security Council, addressing the dispute simultaneously in the General Assembly could broaden existing differences and exacerbate divisions among member states, instead of achieving an effective resolution to the issue. Such parallel action could even undermine the internationally recognized agreed settlement format on Ukraine. We need to strengthen the already mutually agreed mechanism. Our principled position is to support a peaceful solution to the Ukraine and Russia dispute, and we firmly believe that the issue must be resolved by the states concerned. Any solution outside of that framework will not work unless endorsed by both Russians and Ukrainians. Thank you, Mr. President.
أشكر السيد ممثل.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and I now give the floor to the representative of Indonesia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, in many previous occasions, Indonesia has reaffirmed its basic principle of respecting and supporting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders. For us, respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of states is a fundamental principle that governs the relations among nations. Indonesia is therefore against any action of annexation of any sovereign country or territory, as it is a clear violation of the said principle as well as international law. With regard to the current situation in the Crimea, Indonesia has continuously and consistently been emphasizing the importance of dialogue and diplomacy between concerned states in order to resolve the ongoing problems in Crimea, the city of Sevastopol, as well as parts of the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. Indonesia abstained on the resolution because we are convinced that the resolution of the situation in Ukraine could only be pursued through peaceful settlement, including direct political dialogue. We reiterate the need for all parties to exercise maximum restraint, to manage the crisis responsibly, and to uphold the international law. We call on all concerned parties to refrain from taking action that may further escalate tension and are detrimental to possible peaceful efforts. Thank you, Mr. President.
أشكر السيد.
I thank the representative of Indonesia, and I now give the floor to the representative of the European Union.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I have the honor to speak on behalf of the European Union and its member states. The candidate countries, the Republic of North Macedonia, Montenegro and Albania, as well as Ukraine, the Republic of Moldova and Georgia, align themselves with this statement. The European Union remains steadfast in its commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders. The European Union reiterates that it does not recognize the illegal annexation of Ukraine's autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol by the Russian Federation and continues to condemn this violation of international law. It remains a direct challenge to international security with grave implications for the international legal order that protects the territorial integrity, unity, and sovereignty of all states. The European Union remains committed to fully implementing its non-recognition policy, including through restrictive measures. The European Union calls again on UN member states to consider similar non-recognition measures in line with the UN General Assembly Resolution 68/262. The increasing militarization of the peninsula continues to impact negatively the security situation in the Black Sea region. The EU condemns that Russia, in violation of international humanitarian law, imposes automatically Russian citizenship on Crimean residents, as well as conscripts them in the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Russia's violations of international law have led to a dangerous increase in tensions in the Kerch Strait and the Sea of Azov. The unjustified use of force by Russia against Ukraine on 25 November 2018 is a reminder of the negative effects of the illegal annexation of the Crimean Peninsula on regional stability. The European Union noted the release of unlawfully detained Ukrainian seamen and the return to Ukraine of the 3 vessels seized a year ago in the Black Sea near the Kerch Strait. The European Union has repeatedly stressed that Russia needs to comply with the order of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea of 25 May 2019 and to return the seized vessels to Ukraine. However, we were deeply disappointed to read reports about the dismantled state in which the vessels were returned to their legitimate owner. The European Union condemns the construction of the Kerch Bridge without Ukraine's consent, which constitutes a further violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The EU expects Russia to ensure unhindered and free passage of all ships through the Kerch Strait to and from the Azov Sea in accordance with international law. The illegal restrictions to such passage have negative economic consequences for Ukraine's ports in the Azov Sea and the whole region. I thank you for your attention.
I thank the distinguished representative of the European Union. We have thus heard the last speaker on the list of speakers on this agenda item. The General Assembly has thus concluded this phase of its consideration of item 31A of the agenda. I thank you for your cooperation. The meeting is adjourned.